Welcome to today's meeting. We will just jump right into our agenda with the introduction of the panel members. And John, why don't we start with you today?
John Nunley with Better Living.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Jim Tall from the City of Charlottesville.
Henry White, Express Car Wash Company.
Pete Borges with CMA Property.
Chip Boros with the Planning District Commission and Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Morgan Butler with Southern Environmental Law Center.
Eddie Giles, Professional Movers.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Satinder Huja, Mayor, City of Charlottesville.
Chuck Lebo, Lebo Commercial Properties.
And I'm Philip Chouquette. Dave Covington, our fearless technical team leader, is not here today. He's been actually sequestered with the, it's nothing bad. He's sequestered with the VDOT team that is evaluating the statements of qualifications that was received from the 5 teams. That's serious business. They literally sequester these guys in a room until they complete their evaluation process. So I'll say hello to you from Dave. But Joel?
Joel Denardi, local residency VDOT.
And John Lynch, Culpeper District.
Debbie Messina, Sanitation Company.
Lou Hatter, Project Communications Manager.
Chuck Proctor, Culpeper District Planning.
Hal Jones, Charlottesville Residency Project Management Office.
Stephen Davis, VDOT.
Ken Root, VDOT IT.
Stephen is going to be a real important fella for us because Ken is retiring for the 3rd time, I think, and he is sworn to stick with it. Stephen will be taking over for Ken in helping us continue to live stream and put up the video and podcast of our conference. So Stephen, we're happy to see you over the next few meetings while we have Brother Ken still here. You can go ahead to the presentation, Ken, if you don't mind, and you can flip over to, yeah, right there, actually. From our meeting last time, there were 46 viewers, a total of 80 streams, and each stream was about 40 minutes. If you'll remember back to the meeting where we had a few issues, each stream was about 15 or 16 minutes long, so it's good to know that people were able to hang in there a little longer with us this time. I had previously looked at the video postings to see if people were going back and actually watching the posted videos. The answer is yes. The unfortunate part is I forgot to write down how many were under each one, so I just honestly don't remember. But the videos that are being posted are getting viewed by someone. In terms of, you go to the next one, Ken. The feedback from public comments on the website about the same as last time. One person did write directly to the governor, largely on the Western Bypass right-of-way issue. 38 comments came in the website between August 26th and September the 8th. And so far on our Share Your View tab that we put up new since the last meeting on the website, the only 2 people that have talked to each other are me and Neil Williamson. So I hope to see that get a little more use.
The comments stay up, the history, I noticed that.
Pardon me?
The history, so you can see the ongoing.
That will start going forward, but we won't have all the comments going backwards. So there's still that group of about 70 or 80 that we've been summarizing.
Right.
We can print those for you if you want to.
That's how it was set up.
Yeah, it'll be set up going forward. if someone wants to use the share your views and participate in the public discussion, you can. If somebody submits a comment through that web form, it will still be captured offline, I guess. In other words, we're not forcing anybody to publicly share their comments, which I don't think we would want to do, but we could, but we haven't. We'll talk a little bit more about that, though. Just like last time, we tried to take all of these comments and look at the individual issues that are in them, because some comments are a sentence. One person commented that they had no comment, which I thought was interesting. But some of these comments are pretty long. Are pretty long narratives that have a lot of different things in them. And remember, these are comments and opinions. I want to share them with you because I think that's important, but we don't want to attach more meaning to them than necessary. One comment, one issue was adding bike lanes on Rio Road, and I believe it's correct to say that's not in our plan now at Rio. One issue was that encouraged us to maintain being as transparent as possible. One issue was I'm not in favor of any grade separations on Route 29 at all. There was one that caused me to make a comment to you all, and that was one comment said, build Berkmar last because it may not be necessary to build if Rio and the other projects work. These are a package of projects. The parallel roads are getting built. I mean, I know we have perhaps some disagreement over which comes first, but these are a package of projects, and all these projects are getting delivered and built. So we're not going to, VDOT does not intend to build Rio and then come back and say, oh, you know what, this is going pretty cool, so we're not going to do some other piece of the package. They were recommended as a package, they were funded as a package, and they're going to be delivered as a package of projects. Joel, there was a comment about adding a four-way stop on Old Brook Road, and it seemed to deal a little bit more with residential issues. We'll get that comment.
Yeah, we're working on some issues
All right.
related to the neighborhoods.
Well, we should get that comment. Debbie, let's send that full verbatim comment to Joel so he can see what that one was. There was a comment about opposing the free flow right from westbound Rio to northbound 29. There's going to be a free flow right from westbound Rio to northbound 29. So while respect the thought behind that comment, that's...
And I don't know if it's the same commenter, but the thought that was shared with me is that that presents a safety hazard for the crosswalk that could possibly go there.
That is the same. That is the same. That is the same comment, but I think that can all be accommodated safely. That free right is pretty darn important to moving traffic through there. There was a comment to either extend or plan to extend the adaptive signals through up through Ruckersville. So that's something that you can consider, John. That we should have a telephone number and website for construction news, and I can assure you we're going to have a telephone number, a website, and a lot more communications for construction news. Connect Rio Mills to Berkmar, pave Rio Mills to Earlysville. I think that goes sort of in that package that if there's more, the county and the MPO to do, it needs to come through your transportation planning process and be considered appropriately. Perhaps as the county and MPO continues to consider those connections, unless that's something.
Ryan Mills Road is actually in the county 6-year plan right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, all right. One supported alternative A for Berkmar, so there's your first comment on your Berkmar location public hearing. Remember that location public hearing is September the 18th for Berkmar. Use a traffic circle at Berkmar, at Hollymead and Woodbrook.
I read that comment. I believe they're talking about connecting to the existing roundabout there.
That's what I gathered from it, but you're going to know more about me than that.
That's how I read it. So.
There again, we can share the verbatim comment with you, although, as I recall, I think this was like just a sentence in the middle of a lot of other comments. Opposes extending Hillsdale to Route 250. I mean, that extension is part of the package, and as you'll recall, we included that with the hydraulic intersection preliminary engineering study, and that extension is going to continue to be considered as part of that later preliminary engineering. There was a comment that opposes the configuration of the ramp at Best Buy. I mean, that project's designed. It will be on the street for bid in December, maybe November, if you could punch it up a little bit, but that design will be out for bid. There was an inquiry about traffic data used to develop RIO. There is no absence of traffic analysis and traffic data for this area, particularly along Route 29. The first panel largely considered projects that were included in places 29 and the modeling that had been done around that. We did do some specific intersection modeling at RIO that you've seen in that chart before. We will be doing much more project-specific modeling, and we'll talk about that on another agenda item, not just for RIO, but for all of the projects. Three people mentioned the multi-use path on the Route 29 widening project. And Mayor, I think you, last meeting, we mentioned that Route 29 North included a sidewalk on each side. You asked us to investigate a multi-use path on at least one side. I like that recommendation, and VDOT and I have discussed it, and they've briefed the commissioner and the chief engineer on it, and the technical team is looking at that preliminary design right now to see if a multi-use path can fit within the right-of-way in lieu of probably both of the sidewalks. So I think we're looking on the east side for the potential to include the multi-use path on 29 North. There's some comments that support building RIO together with the parallel roads, support grade separations at hydraulic and RIO, sell the western bypass right away, build RIO first, complete things fast, and then there were some general comments supporting the package. Again, as I mentioned last week, those general comments are fine, but we're not keeping score to see how many people say what. It's good information to know. The specific recommendations are a little bit more helpful in terms of shaping the project, even though not all of them can be accommodated. A quick look at our schedule, because we really don't have any new check marks to add, but we said we would keep these next few pages in here. The SOQ evaluation process that Dave is locked up in today and this week will be complete on the 18th, same day as the Berkmar location public hearing. Last night, I sent you a copy of an advertisement that appeared in the Daily Progress about the categorical exclusions for Rio, grade separated intersection, and Route 29 North. We'll talk about those a little bit more, but that's the NEPA, that's the environmental clearance process. That public notice availability expires on September 24th. And then next week, maybe by the end of our meeting, but probably not till 5 o'clock, we'll know who the top three teams are that have been shortlisted to receive the RFP. And the rest of our schedule is the same, with the RFP coming out on October 2nd, along with the next, oh, hang on 1 minute. The design public hearings, October the 14th, advertised at least 30 days in advance. So this Sunday, right, Lou? Sunday? Sure. Sunday, there'll be newspaper advertisements for the design public hearings that will be held on October the 14th. Ken? That's our same schedule for getting to notice to proceed. Okay? Thanks, Ken. Any questions about the schedule? Hadn't changed. All right. Just an update on some recommendations that have come from you that we've firmed up a bit. The Architectural Review Board review, as you'll recall, we talked about trying to build as much as we could into the RFP package, as opposed to just getting designs and then asking people what they think of them. Mark did send us the entrance corridor design guidelines, and those guidelines are being reviewed now for appropriate inclusion in the RFP that will go out. We did get and thank you, Chuck, got a specific comment from Chuck about treatments to the retaining walls. And today is the day that we hoped on getting any additional, if you have any additional specific comments on architectural or landscape treatments, it would be good to have them today, if you could, so that we can pass them along to VDOT and have them considered in the request for proposals. We could stop right here and talk about architectural treatments for a bit, if you'd like to do that. Morgan?
I flagged in our last meeting that this was an issue that was important to us, and we were going to have some input, and I appreciate the extension that you all gave us. It's important enough to us that we decided to hire a landscape architect to look at some of these different issues. Okay. I brought a couple of drawings today, and if y'all will humor me, I can walk through them for about 5 minutes or so, and then
sure.
We can also, happy to.
Can I help you pass these out?
Those should cover those folks on that side of the table. You,
I've got them, Morgan.
Here's 3 for these folks here.
Some free work done for you, John.
I apologize to the members of the public. We didn't bring enough. While those are going around, I'll just start by saying our goal was really to identifies some of the items we think should be focused on in the RFP as far as architectural treatments go. We spent a good amount of time at our last meeting, and I think we'll be spending a fair amount of time going forward thinking about the traffic effectiveness of this particular project. But as others have pointed out, I think it's important to realize and remember that this is going to be a very important visual gateway for our community, a gateway to an important commercial section of the Route 29 corridor. And so it's something I think we want to be proud of when it's all said and done. So let's make sure it's attractive. I think it should convey a positive sense of our community. As I said, although cars and the movement of cars are going to be a primary focus of this, I think we should also look at what other opportunities there are to solve other challenges in the 29 corridor. And a little bit like we talked about with the Route 29 widening project last week, that project obviously at its core is about widening Route 29 to be able to handle anticipated traffic volumes, but there were a number of other problems that VDOT dealt with in the design of that project. And I think here, an important opportunity that's out there is for us to make sure that pedestrians and bicyclists can get across Route 29 safely. That's obviously a big challenge and danger today. So to the extent we can focus on that and incorporate that into the design of the interchange, we think that's a great idea. And then finally, again, getting back to this idea of reflecting this community's identity and being something that we can be proud of, I think we should look at ways to try to minimize the environmental footprint of this project as much as possible. So 5 key recommendations I wanted to talk through briefly. The first 2 are rather broad and general, and they focus most on how do we incorporate in some general ways these priorities, this thinking into the RFP. The first recommendation would be to establish some specific monetary allowances in the RFP for these different items, for the architectural treatment, for example, for landscaping, for lighting. The architects with whom we spoke mentioned that when you have a large request for proposals like this and everyone's bidding and competing, one of the areas that often gets neglected in an effort to lower the cost are the design, the aesthetic design. So if the RFP says we expect proposals to spend X million dollars on these different items, and in your proposal, please show us how you plan to spend that money most effectively, that would be a good way to ensure that people don't shirk the design elements. The second recommendation along that same vein would be to ensure that there's a prominent role on the design team for an architect or a landscape architect, and one that has a clear record of work on projects like this.
The first item, it would be difficult to come to dollar figure, could be percentage.
We kicked that around a little bit, and it was hard to come up with anything specific, but the architect, it's Ken Williams Landscape Studio, by the way. He teaches urban design at UVA, and they've done a number of big projects. I think he was a little bit reluctant to offer any kind of specific, but we were thinking maybe 1% of the contract amount would be, if you get $1.5 to $2 million that's focused on these types of issues that we'll talk through in a moment, that would be an amount that could go a long way towards ensuring the end product is something that our community will be proud of.
Morgan, is this solely the Route 29 intersection, or all the projects that are involved?
That particular dollar amount, or just these thoughts?
These thoughts, I haven't read it yet, so.
Right, that's a great point. As we were thinking through this, and we were talking a little bit last week about the Brookmar Extension Project, and the bridge, and the span of that bridge, and it occurred to us that these same types of concerns and knowing the importance of design is just as much relevant to the Brookmar Bridge and the other projects as well. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind too. So I was finishing talking about making sure that there's a prominent role on the design team for an architect or a landscape architect. Now to get into a bit more specifics, and again, these are pretty general ideas at this point, but just to get some ideas on the table, so to speak, we did bring some drawings with us today. And one of the architectural elements we thought was most important the facade of the interchange as you're driving underneath it, and not having it just be the end of a concrete slab, but rather having it have its own distinctive appearance. We suggested if it actually looks like a bridge as you're going underneath, it would go a long way towards making it more appealing. There are a couple examples over here on this first drawing that I passed out on the right of different treatments like that. The top is actually the bridge up at Monticello, a local example. And then the next three are the Colonial Parkway in Williamsburg that use a brick facade. But something that looks like a bridge or looks like something other than the end of a concrete slab. Second, if we'll go to the next drawing, another very visible, prominent feature of the interchange will be the facings on the retaining wall. And Chuck, this may have been, it sounds like this may have been what your comment was about as well. But the architect and we agreed that it would be important to ensure that these aren't just long monolithic slabs, but rather that they be, the term I guess designers use is articulated, but in effect the idea is to sort of break down this long slab with the idea of having sort of column-like features with some kind of textured concrete in between the columns or some brick or stone materials. And so the goal there being to break up the facade, there was the idea that you could grow vines or some sort of vegetation along portions of the wall also to help break up its appearance. And then a third important idea was the lighting. And this is not just for the retaining wall, but for the interchange as a whole. We're trying to use low hanging lighting as opposed to the very high lights that give off a much more of an industrial feel. Maybe use more fixtures if necessary, but don't hang them so high. So those all go to the appearance, the feel this evokes, the reflecting the community. I mentioned the second of three goals would be making sure that we can get pedestrians across the intersection safely, give people finally a safe way to get across 29. If you'll go to the third and final drawing, the idea here is to have the sort of deck, if you will, the interchange be as simple as possible, and have the crosswalks be set aside with perhaps a different pavement color or some sort of textured material. Have the crosswalks, the lines that they represent, be straight lines as opposed to diagonals, which were in some of the conceptual drawings, some of the crossings would be diagonal. And then it appears, Philip, from the drawings you sent around today, that it looks like there's now a way to get across both on the north side and the south side of Route 29. That's
Right. That was a
obviously
recommendation that you all made, yes.
And you see here also the idea of the sidewalks on the edge of 29, on the edge of Rio, not being pushed up right against Route 29 and Rio Road, to have them be safer, have them be more inviting to people who are walking in that area. And then as you have the islands where pedestrians are crossing the street, have those be big enough for people to be able to stop there comfortably as they are making their way across. Finally, this idea of having a bridge that minimizes environmental impacts. Some ideas there would be to maximize the use of plantings on the bridge deck and throughout the interchange where possible. To the extent we can, try to incorporate some low-impact stormwater practices into the design of the interchange, including perhaps in these green spaces on top of the deck, using energy-efficient lighting that we were talking about some of the light fixtures before, but trying to make sure that those are energy efficient. And then the last idea is, if wherever possible, try to use locally sourced materials like the brick or the stone. So I just wanted to put those ideas on the table as things to think about. We've got some additional ideas on how this could be incorporated into the RFP, and it's something we'd be happy to talk about further, but I don't want to take a whole lot more time today. And finally, last point, just to echo what Chuck had brought up, that a lot of these things are going to be very important for the Berkmar Bridge in particular as well.
Okay. I mean, geez, Morgan, you put a lot of time and thought into this. The one comment I'll make, and this is just off the top of my head, and I'm pretty sure that whoever is watching today, there are members of 5 teams watching. I don't believe we would be doing anything that would cause people to change their team. Is that right, John? So the teams are formed, and I wouldn't want anybody, any of you out there that I'm guessing are watching, to think that now all of a sudden teams are changing. So that might be an issue. But I mean, these are great things to take away and think about. And if you recall, one of our intents was to try to build some of these requirements into the RFP, which would allow each of the shortlisted teams to actually price them. So we'll have to take this away and then come back to you on the 25th and let you know how some of these things are incorporated. But is there any discussion around any of this? Anything anybody would like to add or comment on? Chuck?
This is the exact type of thing that my experience on the Architectural Review Board that we would look at, and highly suggest it's a great idea, is the concrete retaining walls that I wrote you about. Not only one are unattractive, but they invite graffiti artists.
Yeah.
This sort of more or less eliminates that type of possibility potential down the road. But I think these are really great ideas and wonderful for our community.
I agree with the good ideas, and we should try to incorporate them if we can.
Okay. Any other thoughts or?
I would just note that looking at it, it appears to be very consistent with what the county's entrance design guidelines call for. So to mirror what Mr. Lebo was saying.
Okay.
This looks very consistent with what the county's expectations are.
Okay.
We talked about the bridge and the walls on the tunnel, which is going to be the biggest slab of concrete that would be there. But in the space of anybody else saying anything, the Jersey walls that would be running down the ramps for local traffic going up, which would be visible from either side of 29, would be a huge expanse.
Right.
So the treatment of those, whatever goes in there, I think we've got some railings maybe penciled in here. I don't know if that's a VDOT spec or not. So whatever goes in there, it needs to be attractive.
It needs, I'm not sure what is, I know a barrier is required. I'm not sure if it's required to be a Jersey barrier.
It's not required to be a Jersey barrier. It has to be a crash test barrier system. There are different types of bridge parapets you see that are used that are acceptable, that are not it's the Jersey barrier, the N-shaped barrier. There can be other.
And it has to be a barrier that's not structurally attached to the retaining wall. Right. Morgan, I mean, seriously, this is, thanks.
I would just,
Thanks.
Go ahead.
No, please.
I would just note that, I appreciate you sending noting the additional uploads onto the website and the two cross sections that were provided to us. It's going to be very challenging to do that based on those cross sections that were given to us. I'm not really seeing any room on those for landscaping to go. And the first one I actually found a little disconcerting because what you created is on the east side of the road, there's a wall on one side of the pedestrian, a 5-foot sidewalk, and then immediately adjacent to them is a lane of traffic. So basically, they're walking down what feels like a 5-foot wide tunnel with cars moving, I don't know how fast, right next to them. So that was a little disconcerting.
Maybe I'm missing where you're talking about.
It's the cross section.
Well, we'll be looking at all these on some big sheets later. So bring that back, please.
I'd like to echo, first of all, that this is a very beautiful set of drawings. And I'd like to echo Mark's concerns because I have done my homework on the cross sections too. And some of the things are beautiful on the drawing, but hard to fit into the overall package. Some of the things can be done hopefully well, like the retaining wall, to break it up so it's not a big sterile thing, showing those columns or pilasters, and then showing some decorative lighting fixtures that are not very high. Ideally, if you can create a parapet that is like it's shown here, like it's metal and you can look through it, so you don't have this concrete solid wall, provided it meets crash tests. I think that's a good idea. Landscaping, yeah, I love it, except it won't fit from what I see here, and I can see why it won't fit and why this is so tight, and we'll get back to that later. So there's some good ideas. The intersection, I can see where the architects, being architects, would say, well, why don't you keep it simple and nice? But we heard that there were 14 attempts at making this intersection work, and only after they came up with what they came out, which is kind of broken up in bits and pieces, were they able to make it work. So one thing cannot negate the other than if this was some kind of secondary road somewhere where it didn't matter and the traffic levels were low enough. So again, it's very beautiful, and I already feel sorry that we're going to lose a lot of those green strips between the curb and the sidewalk, because the mayor and I fought for it when the mayor wasn't the mayor yet, when we did the widening of 29, where in the last minute we discovered that the construction drawings were showing just sidewalks butting to the curb, and we were able to, in most places, not all places, most places, get that green strip in. And yes, I'd love to see it here, but I think we get back later on the whole issue of trying to fit 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag, which is essentially this whole project is left. So we'll have some issues here that we'll have to be finding a way to make it all work.
Everybody has their own 10-pound bag.
Apparently, we only have 5-pound bags, and that's all we have. The rest of the manure will fall on the floor.
And just to be clear, Henry, this wasn't supposed to be a
Conceptual.
specific plan.
No, I understand.
These are just concepts, things that we want to be sure that we're thinking about. See if there's a way to incorporate some of these ideas about making the crosswalks as direct as possible. There are still, it appears to me, some islands in the middle of the intersection where people would be stopping as they're crossing. There would be some room to plant.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm all for it. The thing is not as nicely as these drawings are.
Right. Well, they're examples that the creatives use this.
The constraints of the project will force us to do something.
I think these are great.
They're very nice.
Great suggestions. We need to take them back now, and just as we've been doing, digest them, see what appropriately belongs to RFP, bring that back to you, and then we're going to, at some point, continue to have the opportunity to review and see what is actually being proposed. So, I mean, that's not the Rio intersection. So, but whoever drew that knows that. But there are good concepts there that can still be evaluated and brought to bear where appropriate. And I really appreciate it.
To me, this is the best contribution.
I just personally speaking, I was really interested in that page.
Not all of it, but a lot of it could be incorporated. It looks very nice.
Did anybody else pay anybody to do some work for us? Because that was really...
It's obviously important to us. We're not...
No, I understand.
So we wanted to get some of the talent and expertise and experience to look at.
Oh, thank you. In all seriousness, thank you.
And thank you all for humoring me and share the drawings and talk to them.
I'll ask in my judgment, this is a substantive addition to the panel today. The public is not able to see these ideas. I would be for putting them up on the site to let people see and represent them as something that the Southern Environmental Law Center brought to the meeting. Is that a good idea, a bad idea? Or now that I've said it, is it too late and we need to do it?
I would say put them up.
I'll put them up and represent them for what they are, and people may have some comments on it.
Some of these things may not be possible to implement.
Yeah, we couldn't put them up as representing the project, but it's just representing some input today. We'll put them up with the minutes.
I can send PDFs
We'll put them up with the minutes. If you can send PDFs, that would be good. Okay. We'll move on to more transparency. The last time I told you the discussion feature would be coming live. It is now live. I know that the VDOT communications team is working on another final sort of redesign of the website, and I believe they've selected a design, and before we meet again, the website will take another iteration that we'll be able to see the next time we're here. The multi-use path, we talked about that a little bit, and as I mentioned, I know the technical team had a larger briefing with the commissioner and the chief engineer. They briefed them on the Route 29 widening multi-use path, and I believe it is just a matter of the technical team looking to see if this can fit without any substantive increase of right-of-way impacts. Is that right, Joel?
Yes.
Okay. Traffic counts. In terms of modeling, we're going from a place to where we had these broad corridor models to taking some traffic counts and developing more project-specific models that will be used to help not only the design process, but to measure effectiveness after the projects are completed. There were a total of 33 video sites where video was used to capture traffic, 12 tube locations. Back in August, before school started, 5th, 6th, 7th, and then the 9th, summer counts were collected. Last Saturday's weekend counts were collected. There'll be some additional counts collected this Saturday, and today, weekday counts are wrapping up at these locations, and those started on the 9th and are wrapping up today. By the end of September, early October, a project-specific traffic model will be available, and we'll be able to see the output from that model. We had a conversation with Karen on some issues today, and that's the model we were talking about, Karen, that would actually let us see more detail as to how each project can be expected to perform in terms of traffic.
So,
yes, sir.
Fall weekend counts are both UVA game days? That would be accurate? The 6th and 13th are both UVA home football games. Just wanted to point that out.
That's true.
A little bit of a spike there, I would assume.
Let's go back and talk with Teresa about that and see.
Maybe one of the 2 days would be fair, but I don't think it would be a fair representation to have 2 of 8 days represent the whole year.
Get a maximum threshold.
Yeah, that's easy enough to, that's easy enough. That's a good point. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Peggy Malone is doing that, right? Or Baker?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Joel, will you take that back to Baker? Okay. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. I went to a different school in Virginia. Doesn't get much recognition here, but I may have missed on the football games. That didn't even cross my mind when we looked at those dates. Thank you, Pete. I wanted to mention something about Berkmar, and I said Berkmar Cultural Resources, but Berkmar in general. Berkmar is a state-funded project. There's not any federal action anticipated with respect to the National Environmental Policy Act. It is following a state environmental review process, which looks at all the same things that the the state looks at on a federal action, there is a potential resource site in the floodplain below where a bridge would likely be. The contractor, whoever it is, will be required to coordinate some data recovery there. There's no reason to believe that affects the construction schedule based on what the environmental folks have reported into the technical team. I've kind of exhausted my knowledge of that little piece there, but it doesn't appear that doing this on any project is not at all unusual in Virginia, and data recovery doesn't mean Williamsburg, Virginia. It can be a pretty modest effort. I don't know the particulars of what this cultural resource site might be. I can get some more information on that and share it with you. My question was, does it look like it's going to affect the construction schedule? And the answer was a fast no. So, Joel, do you have any more information on it?
I think they said, is that the one in the floodplain?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a structure down close to the river there, and we're going to be bridging it, and we're going to be high enough above it where there's no impact to it.
So there's no impact, but we still have to do some data recovery to identify it, which is standard. Any question about that?
Joel,
Morgan?
what kind of structure?
I don't know what the structure is. I've heard it's in the river, so it might have been an old foundation for a mill or something. I'm not really sure.
I honestly don't know. Just got this yesterday, so
Sure.
I'll find out. I'll find out more. Ken, go ahead. Route 29 North widening. The National Environmental Policy Act clearance. There's FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, has 3 levels of documentation that clear NEPA regulations. And the biggest one is an environmental impact statement for major federal actions. The second one is an environmental assessment, which you do, and the result of an environmental assessment is that you either do or don't need a major environmental impact statement. If you don't need one, then you result in something that's called a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI as it's belovedly known. Another level is a categorical exclusion, and a categorical exclusion covers an array of projects that meet certain criteria, particularly those that don't require substantial right-of-way, and FHWA approved using a categorical exclusion for the Rio Grade Separated Intersection and the Route 29 North widening. The categorical exclusion for Route 29 North was approved, was cleared by the Federal Highway Administration on September the 4th. The Rio one was actually September the 2nd. Both of those are the subject of the ad I sent you last night for the public notice period that runs from 2 days ago through September 24th. So I wanted to be sure we reviewed that with you. And go ahead and flip over to item 8, and because there's other things on item 8 that I know you want to spend your time on. Back to, excuse me, there. As I mentioned, the categorical exclusion for Rio was approved, the documentation was approved by the Federal Highway Administration on September the 2nd. The same comment period. In a bit, we're going to be reviewing typical sections and profiles, not just for Rio, but typical sections for Berkmar and Route 29 North as well. Before we do that, though, I want to cover this next slide. Every now and then, if when you think you're doing real good, you stub your own toe and have nobody to blame but yourself. A letter got out to a few property owners about the potential of a utility corridor. And if you happen to be one of those property owners, you got a letter that says, we're the government, we're here to help, we're going to start by taking a 50-foot swath of easement through the middle of your parking lot. Trying to make a little fun of that because it's been a painful week in that regard. But needless to say, I want to be very clear with anyone who, and I know Karen got one of those letters, and we've talked about that, but anyone who may have seen a letter or drawings associated with a letter that was sent last week that referred to a utility corridor. Yes, that's something that we've talked about, that wouldn't it be great if there were a place to establish a utility corridor outside of the right-of-way to relocate all the utilities in underground? Yeah, that would be nice. But we have made no decision in that regard, and there is not going to be a utility corridor located outside of the right-of-way unless the property owners that VDOT would be working with see some mutual benefit in such a utility corridor. We've had some follow-up discussions and corrected any misunderstandings with the Albemarle Square folks, and we had a good conversation with Karen and her, I think he's your engineer, your chief engineer, this morning. So there is no decision on a utility corridor. There's no design underway for a utility corridor off the right-of-way. It was a concept. It was something that we discussed, the technical team discussed. All options for utility relocations are being considered, including relocating them within the existing right-of-way, and we'll continue to update you on that as that develops. Likewise, on stormwater management, this drawing that got out last week, if you looked at it, you would have seen two big areas that took a lot of parking that were designated as stormwater management areas. We're not looking to do that. We have to comply with new stormwater regs from DEQ. The impervious area on Rio goes from about 96% to 97%. But for these new stormwater regs, VDOT has to do more than look at just that 1% increase. That's the way it is. That's the way any development that occurs would have to look at these. We are still looking at any option to minimize off right-of-way encroachment, including the underground storage for stormwater management. If there were a place that an underground basin were built, then after construction, that property is going to be returned to its original condition and use. VDOT's also looking at some things in terms of possibly purchasing credits to reduce the amount of actual physical work that needs to be done. And like the utility corridors, we'll continue to update you on that as well. But boy, we really created a sizzle over the weekend that just simply wasn't necessary. But things happen, and well-intended people saddled up and rode out real fast, maybe a little faster than we wanted them to, and it really caused some misunderstandings regarding the acquisition of property for utility relocations and for stormwater management. I think we've got that cleared up, but I want to be sure we had it cleared up with you. Sure. Karen, you, okay, and thank you for your understanding. Okay, well, now I think Joel, if you would come up. Joel is going to take us through some pretty fundamental, typical section views, but I think more importantly for you all, once he gets through those, some additional look at RIO grade separated intersection, plan and profile, and maintenance and protection of traffic. I'm going to get out of his way.
I'm going to keep this on the floor for now, so we'll talk about the 29 widening first. So we got the typical sections we're going to look at today. I think last time we looked at the plan sections, the plan views, the top down, and today we're going to look at the lane configurations. And it sounds like some of you have already looked at this on the website. So we'll go over these fairly quickly. This is 29 in Berkmar. 29 from South Fork Ravenna River up to Hollymead. It'll be 3 lanes north, 3 lanes south. Here we're showing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides with a 4-foot utility strip. As Philip mentioned earlier, we're gonna relook at the sidewalk section because the county plan shows a shared use path on the east side of 29. So we're going to see if that fits within the footprint and the budget of this project and try and accommodate that. But for now, we've agreed to, the plan right now is the sidewalks there. You also notice there's curb and gutter. There's a raised median shown here, so we're converting it to an urban section. Are there any questions about? Excuse me. Excuse me.
What is the width of the median?
The width of the median? That'll be variable through there. Medians are generally 16-foot width minimum on an urban corridor. What that allows is a 4-foot strip when you have a left turn lane that comes in, a single left turn lane. But you might, if you have a dual left turn lane, sometimes you have to get a wider median. In the areas that 29 already has a wider median, you'd probably see additional, the width would stay there. And where it's narrower, or where the earthwork, where the grades are coming similar, you might see some changes there.
Is there enough space for landscaping in that median?
Yeah, we'd have to establish what the clear zone is and look what the landscape requirements, but I would say like the 29 south section where there's the street trees in there and everything, that's the kind of thing we'd be able to look at again, especially in the wider areas. Any other questions on 29?
If you're talking about planting trees, the thing that allowed us to plant trees on the existing 29 was that all the utilities were favoring the east side of the median, over there. So that in order to make it compatible with the utilities that were there and get the trees in place, the trees are not on the center line of the median. They're actually 2 feet offset. That gave us a clearance for all the utilities. So you may want to keep that in mind.
RWSA will not allow planting trees on top of the water line.
Well, you say utility lines are on the far right side?
I'd have to remember where the utility lines are.
Under the sidewalk?
The utilities, no, the utilities were in the median, right there where you have your hand. And we checked with all the utilities how much clearance they needed and did a composite drawing of each one, and then looked at what space was left for trees. And we discovered that by not planting the trees on the center line, but just moving them 2 feet west of the center line, we were in compliance with all the utility requirements.
And I'm not exactly sure what utilities are in the existing median on 29. I know that from Hollymead to the north, they recently moved the water line out from under the median and abandoned the old line. From the south there, I still think in this area it does, I think it does.
There's gas and fiber optic.
I think the fiber optic is over here
Maybe
now.
up the side, yeah.
Fiber's above ground through here on the top.
Fiber optics is on the site.
Joel, let's get that information, and we can bring it back on the 25th, and then we'll know, rather than think we know.
I cannot tell you which utility they were, but there were 3 different ones, and I remember talking to each one of them.
Okay.
But don't ask me which ones.
Okay. Now we're going to move to Berkmar. So I'll put this up a little bit where we can see. So this is the Berkmar Bridge section. And this is the Berkmar Road section. And they line up with what the features are. You have your 2 travel lanes. You have bike lanes on both sides. You have a sidewalk on this side, and you have a shared use path on the other side of the road. The same with the typical section. This is looking north. You have your 2 travel lanes. These are not marked. They don't have the bicycle markers in them, but these are the bike lanes. You have curb and gutter here again on both sides. You have your shared use path. And you have your sidewalk on the left. This would be for the entire stretch up. And
Explain for those that don't know, what is a shared use path for?
a shared use path is for bicycles and pedestrians. It's designed for two-way bicycle traffic. They do have clear zones like a travel lane does for bicycles to make maneuvers. Typically, a shared use path is used by a lower level bicyclist, someone not as experienced that would be out on the road bike lanes. It's good for kids on bicycles, but they are designed for 20-mile-an-hour bicycle traffic.
Because you have bicycles in both directions and a sidewalk on them.
Yes, you do. And I think what you do is you see your experienced bicycles will probably use these. Your kids and their parents could walk together and the kids could bicycle or something like that on here, or less experienced or teenagers that are not up there with the bicycles that need to be on the road. Yes?
So it's been mentioned that although Berkmar extension is being built to a 2-lane width because the traffic forecasts don't see us needing 4 lanes for decades into the future, the right-of-way is being acquired so that if ultimately necessary, it could potentially be expanded to 4 lanes. How would that expansion occur? Basically,
On the bridge or the typical?
on the main line on the bottom picture.
It would be basically a mirror image over here of this roadway. You'd have a divided roadway, 2 lanes in each direction. You might, depending on the space you have, you would keep your bike lane on the outside here with 2-way traffic. So if this was your northbound lanes, 2-way traffic this way, bike lane going this way, this bike lane wouldn't be necessary. But you'd basically start over here and have another curb and gutter section, 2 more lanes of traffic, another bike lane, and your
So
sidewalk.
property is being purchased there to allow for that?
It's,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, but it won't be graded to prepare.
No, we won't grade that section.
Okay.
I think grading now is, it's kind of like building the second bridge. There's really no reason to grade it now. When you go down the road and you build the other section, your cost is not a significant savings for grading it now.
I was curious if it was basically the 4-lane Berkmar would eviscerate the shared use path, but it sounds like no.
No, there'd be no reason to get rid of the shared use path. The intention is that it would be on this side over here. Yes?
I know we've still got the question about whether we're actually going to build the interconnections at Ashwood and Hollymead, but would there be stub outs?
Well, I think the last conversation we had.
Roundabouts.
Roundabouts?
Stub outs or roundabouts, I said.
We hadn't really considered a stub out there. I'm not a big fan of stub outs on roads that don't make connections myself, but that might just be me. I think the conversation last time was if it got in the NPO's plan, that we would
Well, it would
consider.
have to be.
Yeah, it would have to be in the NPO's plan. We'd consider making the connection. I don't think there's a significant. There's the cost savings of putting a stub out there
Okay, all right.
and having
The
the
question mark
connection.
too is, okay, where do you put it? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's the big question, because if you take Ashwood on the straight line, it goes right through the antenna field.
Well,
So
that's-
most likely, it's going to go to if you're going towards Berkmar, to the left side, because the right, we have the cemetery.
Which was another question, was are we going to go ahead and design for the connection, so.
Well, we've got to go through the planning process and get it in the appropriate documents before we can even proceed with looking at it.
Okay. Any questions on the typicals?
Joel, I wanted to just mention one thing for people listening. We did not get these typicals in time to upload them on the website. There are 4 graphics out on the website now. We do need to get these uploaded as well. So what you just reviewed, for anybody watching, they haven't been able to see that on the web, but we will get them
We should be able to get
uploaded.
those. Can we
We'll
get
get,
those tomorrow
today or
morning?
tomorrow, we should be able to get those uploaded, as long as we ask them files. Okay, thank you.
All right, so the next typical section we're going to look at is the right of grade separation. And I don't know, is this one, did we get this one on the website?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one's on the website. So what we have here is, looking north from, you're standing south of the intersection, and you're looking north. Between here and here is where the bridge would be, where Rio Road would come over. So what we have on the local approach, you have 2 through lanes with the right shared through here. You have 2 left turn lanes. And the left turn lanes will go up to the bridge here and go west on Rio. You have your through lanes that are dropped down, and obviously this distance goes from 0 up to a clearance of about 16.5 or 18.5 feet it is. We have the sidewalks on both sides. One of the comments we had last time was, would there be shoulders as you go under the grade separations? We're showing an 8-foot shoulder here, and we're showing a 2-foot shoulder on the inside. Obviously, the 2-foot shoulder doesn't give you anywhere to pull over, but it does give you a clearance to where you have to have a wall going down to separate that traffic again. We don't have enough width there to have a raised median, so it has to be a Jersey barrier again, is what we're showing here now. You also have your barriers on either side of this wall here to protect the wall, and we have them up here. Obviously, those treatments are going to be, these are generic looks at what those treatments are, and they can be various kinds of things. And it's the same typical section up here. As you come off of Rio, and you take a right to go north, this will be a right turn lane going down there, and you have 2 through lanes going north. You'll have your 2 northbound and 2 southbound through lanes there, and then as you approach Rio Road going south on 29, you'll have, similar to going north, you'll have 2 through lanes with the rightmost through lane being a right turn lane also. And then you'll have your 2 left turn lanes. So it's basically all of the same traffic movements we have currently, except these lanes are dropping down, and they're going to avoid going through 3 traffic lights, the one at Rio Road and the one immediately north and immediately south. Are there any questions on this?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a few.
Okay.
The first question I have, that I had before, that I was hoping that I was going to see some specifics today, is how do you build that wall, those 2 walls, retaining walls, and keep those lanes adjacent to the walls open to traffic?
These lanes up here?
Just the adjacent lane.
I think he's more focused on the left side.
First lane, that lane, and then the same equivalent lane on the other side.
Now we are we're gonna look at some plan views after this that show a snapshot of the sequence of construction, the maintenance of traffic during the period between May 23rd and September 2nd. So do you want to wait to talk about that until we get to that, or do you want to?
Well,
because you're most worried about the southbound 2 lanes here.
Those 2 lanes have worried me before. I voiced my concerns, and I still have it. And first, how do you make 2 lanes open to traffic? And then, obviously, the next question I have is, even with 2 lanes, the traffic carrying capacity there, do you know what it is?
The traffic carrying capacity of 2
those
lanes?
2 lanes, yes.
It's the volume?
Yeah.
Well, in a perfect world, it's 1,700 passenger cars per hour per lane.
For what essentially is a frontage road, that's not the data.
And obviously, with the entrances and the intersection,
Exactly.
you reduce that. But I don't have a calculation for what the capacity of
The
those 2
data
lanes
that
are.
I've seen between the 2 lanes, it's somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500.
Between the 2.
Between the 2 of them, because they're frontage roads.
Where did you see that? You saw that calculation?
Oh, I have something that I downloaded from the internet, Colorado somewhere. But, I'll be glad to share it.
Yeah, sure. You can do a level of service.
And again, I'm not traffic engineer. I'm doing traffic engineering.
Basically,
101.
traffic engineering here, you take the 2 lanes, and like I said, it's 1,700 passenger cars per hour per lane, and you start reducing it. That is the ultimate capacity of a lane of traffic. And then you start reducing it based on lane widths, shoulder widths, the amount of truck traffic, the amount of entrances, grades, and things like that. So you go down from there. And I'm not aware that we've done that calculation on
Well,
these 2 lanes.
That's really what I'm driving at, because I don't claim that I learned everything, okay? It's not even traffic engineering 101, it's traffic engineering 99, okay? But nevertheless, somebody needs to do it, okay? And better somebody that knows what he's doing rather than me.
I would point out one thing here is, and when we get to the plan, we're going to look at it. During the maintenance of traffic, there are 2 southbound lanes that will be maintained, and that's what your concern is. There'll be 3 northbound lanes.
I understand.
And and the reason we're going with the 3 northbound lanes is because on the northeast quadrant, there's not nearly as much opportunity to get around this intersection as are the existing Berkmar, Hilton Heights Road, Woodbrook, and things like that. So we thought it more important to have the 3rd lane northbound to accommodate, to try and keep traffic out of the neighborhoods up there.
Well, that's fine, but I'm still worried about those 2 lanes trying to carry traffic that in peak hour is, again, you probably know the number, what do they have to carry? And if you don't know, then somebody needs to.
We have those summary sheets from the highway capacity software. All of those lane volumes are in, it's a lot to dig through, but we have all of those lane volumes. And what we might want to do, Joel, Chuck, is come back on the 25th and take a similar graphic and just put all of those lane volumes out. We have them all for the no build, 2014, 2035. We have them for all of those 14 options that you studied that.
Chuck, do you remember what the level of service through the intersection is under construction? Did we figure that? We did figure that.
I have to get back and look on it.
Yeah, we've got, there's no absence of data. We just need to display it in a way that is comprehensible.
Okay.
We should do that. If we're going to do it southbound, we should do it.
We'll do it for let's do it for every lane.
With my traffic engineering 99, I kind of suspect that at peak hours, those 2 lanes theoretically would have to carry something in the order of 3,000 cars per hour at peak hours, and you have capacity for at best about 1,500. That's my quick and dirty conclusion, which I want to be challenged and
okay, we're going to challenge
dispel.
We're going to challenge you next
in the
time.
after construction.
Oh, after construction?
Is that what you're talking about?
Right now I'm talking during construction.
During construction.
After construction, I have concerns too.
Okay.
Because now you have 2 lanes depressed, replacing 4 lanes. Now, I do understand that the level of service for the intersection is improving. They did the 14 studies, they found the one that works. However, level of services apply separately for intersections and for highways. And my concern is the level of service for the highway is reconfigured with great separation could be problematic because carrying capacity has been reduced by going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes for a 4,000 feet stretch. So.
Well, you still have the 4 through lanes, just 2 are local, 2 are through.
I'm talking about the true lanes.
Let's come back on the 25th with these numbers because
fair enough.
It will get, and rather than say what those numbers represent, let's come back with the numbers, with the level of service. We have all those lane volumes. And let's let the numbers speak for themselves for a first blush. Then we can talk to them a little bit more.
I would like to just say one more thing about it. I don't think the assumption of traffic flow that all the traffic that's not stopping at one of those locations is necessarily in these 2 lanes.
Well, that is a very interesting point, because I would find it very unlikely that people who are not making a turn at Rio would have any reason or interest to stay on those high lanes rather than the depressed lanes. It's kind of human nature. Why should they get out there? Why should they be at the traffic light if they're going to meet the same traffic on the other end?
Oh, because if everybody's trying to get in these 2 lanes here,
Uh-huh.
and they start to back up,
Uh-huh.
I find it faster to go up on these 2
Okay,
lanes.
so you're
It's like
telling me
water.
that there are going to be backups?
No, I'm-
No, you're
if there were,
Okay.
basically the traffic
Yeah,
typically
you're right.
balances itself
Right.
out. So
It's-
people will, I believe people will use these
Uh,
as opposed to getting down there.
Yeah, in electrical engineering, that's Kirchhoff's law. But, remember parallel circuits?
Mhm.
Yeah. That's actually what you want to avoid. What you don't want is, here is the big football game, right? In September, whatever. In
The day we took the
2016.
6 of the
And everybody says, whoa, what's going on here? And now people are scrambling, yes, to get on those side lanes because there is a congestion and backup. What will we have done for mobility? So I think that needs to be studied, and studied by somebody much more prepared than I am. But
I think that's a fair question, yeah.
Okay.
I think Chuck's trying to work on it right now over there.
He's already doing it.
He's already crunching numbers.
Okay.
We're going to bring those back
Yes.
on the 25th
We'll bring those back.
because there's a plethora of numbers that went into looking at the operation of this intersection now and how it would operate in the future, which is terribly, and how it will operate in the future with this configuration. So let's bring that back, realizing that that's a piece that will be fed to the more project-specific modeling that we'll have available in October.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on this typical section here?
I have one.
You have more?
It's not traffic engineering this time. It's about the 11-foot lanes. And my question is, do they meet federal standards? The lanes have been reduced from 12 to 11.
I think they're 11 now.
Okay, well.
We have a lot of 11.
They have been designed to 11. That's, reduced was the wrong word. They have been designed to 11. And my question is that still an acceptable federal standard these days? It is.
Actually, it varies, but anywhere from 9 to an 11-foot lane, 9 to 12-foot lane is acceptable, depending on the volume.
Okay.
But for this, 11 is
I
acceptable.
thought that today for roads of this magnitude, there would be a minimum of 12.
No. More like a maximum of 12.
Okay, fair enough.
Desirable,
Okay.
not achievable.
You answered the question.
Okay, any other questions on this?
Um,
Can you guys see it okay? You probably looked at the internet already, don't haven't you? All right, we'll move on to the plan views. Sorry, the boards are a little bit short from last week, so we got a little bit of overlap here. Okay, so we have a little more detail on the Rio grade separation.
Joel, why don't you scoot the whole easel up as much as you can. And Ken, let's
Is that
kill
okay?
the,
And I saw this morning, I'll start right away.
Okay.
What are these left turn arrows on the throughway?
That's existing. This is a photograph.
Okay, so they're.
I saw that.
Turn left in the middle of that bridge.
We should have marked those out.
We should have, because I did the same
Aerial
thing.
imagery.
Okay, and then the last
That's
thing.
existing.
Will these trees remain here, or is that just an image?
From here on?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no, they can,
Nothing.
these could remain.
okay.
Yeah, we're not, this plan is not showing, if you look at the light black lines through here,
Yeah,
that's
that's
where the
what it
curve
says.
is being rebuilt.
That's what I
There wouldn't
thought.
be anything
Okay.
on this one.
That's what I clarified.
Okay, so, I gotta hang it a little bit so I can see it.
Can you see?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
This is similar to what we looked at 2 weeks ago, the grade separation. This has a little more detail today. things to note, like you spoke of earlier, we have pedestrian movements on the south side of 29. We also, the bridge, you're able to get a little bit of length off of that bridge there. About, I think did we just figure 100 feet?
That bridge, what you saw last week was round numbers, 500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
This is about
320.
350.
Yeah. So we've reduced that a little bit there. Helps with lighting under there, and just the overall footprint is a little smaller.
I noticed that too, that it seemed different than what
Yeah.
we saw last week.
It is.
And my question is, does it still have the continuous U-turns? And
Yes.
does it still perform?
The U-turns have been moved up a little bit.
Okay.
They were farther down here. They moved them up into this area. You can see on the dotted lines the U-turns are still there in both directions.
And the intersection still performs?
Yes.
That's the 15th modeling we.
This is number
That's
15.
number 15. We're able to reduce that just a
It's
little
kind of like
bit.
finding your keys, you kind of stop after you find them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I was wondering about that.
Just a little reformed here. One of your questions about the southbound, the two southbound lanes, is we are pushing this out a little bit. It's not going into the parking lot there. However, by pushing that out first, it allows us to maintain those two southbound lanes and also have room between where the wall is and excavation in the middle here
Okay.
to maintain this traffic.
Well, my concern is on the southwest quadrant, where you only have 2 lanes for a long way.
Right down here.
Yeah, all the way along that.
And this right side is all going to be rebuilt.
Okay, well, that's where I had difficulty reading the drawing.
So during construction, will those lanes kind of be more narrow than 11 feet to allow for?
During construction, I believe you'll see it down to 10-foot lanes at times.
Because I think that is a little bit of Henry's concern, and I do agree and understand, I think, what he's saying, and that is, how can you build a retaining wall right next to the flow of traffic? You got to have a little bit of a buffer, and
Well, the retaining wall would probably be in place by the time we're actually excavating the material out.
Could you explain that?
Dave said that last time, we didn't ask about that.
Last time I thought I said that I wanted to see diagrams or something to explain it this time. And I haven't seen them.
Most likely, we'd see some night work occurring, and actually some sort of wall being put down in the ground before we actually excavate the material out.
Sheet piling?
Could be. More likely, the sheet piling is more of a temporary pile. What you'd want to do is you'd actually want to put the permanent wall in place.
Well, okay. This gets into the weeds of construction engineering, but again, I
So
have
at
no
night,
doubts.
you're going to cut the lanes down probably and excavate and do footers and then place your walls?
It would be, what you could do along that wall line there, and this is just one possible solution, but we have to have a possible solution to put this out to get a better solution, which we're expecting better solutions to come in. But one possible solution for these walls would be at nighttime to actually go along where this orange line is and drill a shaft.
it's interesting you say that about one of the possible solutions, because I was getting ready to ask Philip, is the selected contractor going to participate at all in this panel discussions?
Absolutely.
Because I would imagine they will come up with that solution. not necessarily-
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
But there is a way to do it.
But we have to get there. I mean, there's going to be work, that doesn't affect any lane closures during peak commuting hours.
Well, yeah, I don't want to try to design it, okay, but I can see where you could do something. It would be nice if you told us what it is that you think you're going to do. I did try sheet metal.
Well, I don't know what we're gonna do. It depends, the contractor will ultimately decide what
Right.
to do. We sit around at the office and we think of ways that we could do it.
Yeah, but you should have one way that you think is the best that you can do and present it, and then say, the contractor may have a better one. But if you don't do that, it's kind of wishful thinking. We hope the contractor has a good idea. Our idea is half-baked, and
All right,
we're not going to finish making.
Our idea is great, but
Yeah.
we're hoping for a great
Lots of
idea.
steel plates, move back and forth.
Could be. There would be concern over steel plates during some weather events.
Okay,
so-
well, let's say, I'm
Yeah.
putting words in your mouth. Don't let me do that.
No,
It
steel
would be
plates
nice
are a
if-
consideration, yeah.
It would be nice if you
But
told
the
us.
idea would be to do some night construction in the off-peak hours and get that wall put in place. And by 6 AM the next morning, have those lanes all restored every day.
Okay.
Well, having the lanes restored
It's
by 6
required.
AM every day
It's
is a
required.
requirement. Is a requirement.
Except between May 23rd and September 2nd,
Right, right.
2016.
Do we know that night work has been approved by the county?
We've been in discussions with the county about the night work, and there's been, the concern is with the noise,
Right.
and we would be good, we would work with the county to address concerns like that, possibly restrict certain activities that would be noisy.
Like digging a shaft?
Excuse me?
Like digging a shaft?
Well, you know, the closest residence, I believe, are Arden Place out there, which is about 800 feet, and they have a good amount of items. So we could do some sort of monitoring restrictions of what they are, but the drill shaft would not be,
I just want to make sure we've got all the
yeah.
all the things lined
We've
up.
been in conversation with the county about it. We're not, yeah.
Can I ask you a question about on the southbound lanes that we were just speaking about?
These.
Across on the south side of the interchange.
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned all of that right side curb is going to be redone, is that right?
Yeah.
So it's going to extend to the west a bit?
Yes.
And
Basically, the curb would be on the back of the existing sidewalk right now.
that's probably the most densely populated business quadrant as far as the entrances to
Yeah.
individual businesses.
Yeah, one of the things during construction is a requirement is that you maintain the access to those businesses. That's another thing that would most likely be done at night also, because that curb rebuilding on the south side especially is going to be important to have in place prior to shifting the traffic out as far as we can to get the excavation in the middle part done. So that's something that would occur before the middle lanes were shifted most likely. And once that was done, there would not be, you wouldn't impede in and out of those businesses at that time.
Having access is one thing, but being open for business is really another from the public perception.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just important. And as the county and everyone else starts putting together plans about how to communicate that these businesses are open, that's one that I want to make sure we focus on.
That is important. There's a number of entrances there. They rely heavily on those entrances for the business.
Right.
And it would be a requirement to keep them open. And then we're having further discussions with CHIP and the county and the city also about communications plans and lessening the impact as much as possible.
Can you go into any more detail about how this is going to get done? I understand now you may be doing night work and doing columns.
The idea would be to have that wall in place during night work, excavate the material out, and the walls are there. Now, after you excavate it out, you have a concrete wall that's not attractive. There would be, they would take some sort of treatment on them, like we were talking about with the architectural treatments. But you can build a wall, basically by drilling shafts and going down side by side.
Do precast.
I think precast would be pretty difficult here.
Okay.
But it could be a possibility.
So a shaft would be how big?
Normally be about 4 foot diameter, but it could vary.
Was anything else changed when the cover shrunk by 150 feet?
No, it's really just the U-turn movements.
They became tighter,
Or tighter.
and the green space went away.
No, you still have green space, and one of the things we didn't put on, which when Morgan was talking about that, the last exhibit that we showed you that had those green areas on there, that was really what we thought would be able to be landscaped or some sort of treatment in those. This still has them. There's a lot of area in here between the traffic movements. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously you shrink the footprint of the bridge there, it's going to shrink that also, but there's still the same idea and the same areas will be there.
So it's not just those two darker semicircles that would be non-roadway pavement, there's some other spots in there as well.
Yeah, I think you have opportunities possibly in the triangles here.
Since you have redesigned that bridge, could you, next meeting, bring us the revised design of the bridge with whatever green spaces and pedestrian crossings and so on?
Yes. Well, the
Since
pedestrian
previous
crossings
design is
are
no
on here.
longer
Yeah.
in place, can we look at what's in place now? That would be good.
You mean, well, I want to make sure I understand what you mean, because that's what's in place now.
I think he wants to see what we
That's
showed
very-
last time.
that's very-
Showed
okay,
the green
okay,
areas,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
It's very diagrammatic. It shows
Yeah,
a
I
whole
got
bunch of turn lanes.
Yeah,
When I
okay.
looked carefully at
Yeah.
this thing, I saw potential for some green spots in between that I didn't know.
Last time we colored them in, this time we didn't color them in.
I didn't
It's more of
know-
an engineering drawing than last time.
I didn't know what was omitted for simplicity and what was omitted because it wasn't there anymore. And what I'm saying is,
No.
put back in what's really going to be there, as you had on the previous meeting when you showed us the bridge. Because I understand, for simplicity's sake, you didn't want to show all the...
I could draw them on here now, but I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah,
That's
go
not
ahead.
drawing.
No, we'll bring, and you want us to just more focused on the bridge?
Yeah, like you
sure.
had last time. And
Sure.
Now you say you redid the bridge, well, show us
Right.
the redone bridge.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is there any way that you all could get that on that screen up there, a picture, because that's about this is bigger, actually it's larger, and I think it'd be more emphasized if we saw it up there.
You guys want to take a few minutes and actually come look at this?
Well, can we do that? Is there any reason we can you link to the internet, Ken?
It's pretty slow. Challenge. You got to speed.
Did you get it on the website?
iPhone, you got,
Just-
now you
Oh,
got
wait,
Verizon.
not, maybe
Upgrade,
not
man.
be streamed.
Yeah, right.
Because you can put it in your
Straight to
computer
there.
screen
Can't get anyone.
and really magnify it and go up and down the highway and north and south, east and west.
Where do you want to see?
I told him, I saw it on my computer this morning, and you can magnify that to a great extent.
In a
Bridge.
visual.
Yeah,
and
online.
north and south, east and west.
I was able to.
Yeah, the light, you can see it really well.
Well, and you can move back and forth.
And you can blow it up
Yeah,
also.
yeah, right.
Go ahead, Ellie, get up there.
I can't see
Call me
that.
Dana.
Okay, while they're trying to get that up, if they can.
Yeah, but we need to keep going. Ken, what's that going to do to the streaming?
Shouldn't hurt you.
Won't hurt. Okay, good. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Do we have it? Okay, also, I'm sorry, I'm looking up here. We have a profile on this drawing, which we didn't show last time. So north to south here, you can see the dotted line is existing.
Now, this is not necessarily in line with that, correct?
Oh,
Is it? Okay.
Yes,
It looked
it is.
different on my screen, so.
Yeah, it is. So here, the arched box there is what you would say is going to be the beams of the bridge there. And Rio's coming this way, up on this level here. And the interior through lanes on 29 north and south would be down at this grade. And they'd all meet back up, both north and south, where those two lines come together.
The only thing is the vertical scale is different than the horizontal scale.
Yes. If you, we always do that with profiles on road plans. If you had them on the same scale,
No, you wouldn't.
it would look flat.
I agree. I just wanted to, say it so that people...
When we build roads in Hampton Roads, we even
Well,
we magnify it
does-
more. So you can.
Is everyone related to what Henry's just talking about right now, about the vertical scale being different than the horizontal scale? Okay, just want to be sure. So in other words, it would not look that
Yeah.
steep.
Vertically, 40 feet vertically is equivalent to 100 feet horizontally on this scale. Any other questions on this? So this is the final layout. I shouldn't say final layout. This is what we would
Current final.
could be the final layout. The next drawing we're going to look at is during construction.
some form, which may involve a bit of this drawing that we're looking at now, will be in the RFP. And between now and next meeting, we'll be buttoning down what will be in the RFP. Because we have to have some drawings in the RFP that speak to the outcome that VDOT is looking for.
Yes. Is, with the RFP coming up pretty close, and I know, Philip, you mentioned that there's some utility questions about how to deal with that corridor, or however we end up doing that. There's a significant stormwater management plan that needs to be developed, and if you talk about underground tanks and that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
that's major dollars, and construction-wise, that's a big deal.
Right.
Is there going to be a determined plan in the RFP?
There will be guidance in the RFP about whether or not there's a utility corridor off the right-of-way or within the right-of-way, and the approach to stormwater management. Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that the contractor would come back and say, we could do it this way, and it might be easier.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
But you're going to stage what they have to work with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if it's credits, that's treated very differently in construction.
Right.
Would credits be excuse me for following up on that, but the investment in credits, would that come out of the construction account?
Yes. I mean, that would be a cost
Right.
of construction.
Right, sure.
Yes.
Joel, before you go to the next drawing, on this drawing is where you show the cut and fill lines,
Yes.
and I saw the lines, and I was looking for the symbols, the C and the F. It would be below at the bottom, but
Yeah.
for some reason it didn't print.
Yeah, the yellow lines are cut and fill.
Right.
But the symbols are not on.
The symbols were missing, so I couldn't tell where was cut and where was filled. Some places I could remember, so I had an idea.
It's all fill.
Right?
It's all fill. You can tell by the length of the line.
I think you have cuts.
It's all cut.
You have lots of cuts, right, especially on that side. You have cuts, but it's okay.
I'm not so, yeah, we need to check on that, because it's showing a spill on here. And that's right, that doesn't make a lot of
They're
sense on
cuts.
this side right here.
Their cuts are not fill on that side. That's why I say others, it may be minor, and I couldn't tell if it was.
Well, let's have the
Yeah,
designer.
we need to
Let's
ask-
have the designer, get that on there. There again, we don't need to guess.
Yeah,
And get revised. If we need to revise the drawings, we'll
we
get
do,
revised.
because those are showing as fill on this drawing, and I think you're right, they are.
I have one last question. Philip, I traded emails with you after last meeting
Yes.
about the stacking capacity at the left on Woodbrook. So
Yes.
We have a continuous right turn off of Rio onto 29 North. And a lot of businesses count on that traffic accessing Woodbrook.
Right.
Lowe's, Kroger, and to name the big ones. Is there the opportunity to increase the stacking capacity at that time?
We're looking at that at Woodbrook, as well as we're going to look at it back south at the entrance to Fashion Square Mall.
It
The
already
answer is
backs
yes,
up into-
there's opportunity.
It already backs up into through traffic. It would be a shame to do all of this and then have that turn back up into the through lanes.
Yeah. No, Dave and I talked about that after the last meeting.
And I've looked at it. I mean, it looks like we have this center stripe there to be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Move on.
And Pete, we're looking at that as part of this, not separate.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so this is basically a snapshot of what you might expect to see during construction between the dates of May 23rd and September 2nd. Okay? You can see a slight red on either side here, and then the yellow highlight in the middle. So basically, the red areas are where we're maintaining traffic during construction. You can see the number of arrows are the number of lanes that you have there. And the yellow area is where we're doing excavation and building a bridge. Something I would like to note about this plan that's not very easy to see on here, but it's important to the flow of traffic, is down here at the existing Berkmar Drive, we're going to put a cut in the median here and have a signalized left turn lane going northbound 29 on the Berkmar Drive at that.
Just during construction?
Yeah.
It will be removed after construction?
Yes.
Yes. And it's shown as being removed on construction after.
As I said last time, that it should also be allowing for the emergency services to take a left going north on 29.
If they're coming out of Berkmar, should move Berkmar.
No, this is Berkmar, so you're saying coming this way?
Yeah. If, even for the temporary span that you're building the bridge, they utilize that intersection now to get going north on 29 for response. They could go out on Berkmar, which is fine, but to get over to Rio and all, it'd be best if they could get access.
That's a good suggestion, and I guess that would take some sort of opticon system on that signal, in addition to some sort of probably mountable curb to keep the traffic taking the left, to keep other people from making that movement, and so the vehicles could make it. So I think that's something we would look at. Would not be a hard thing to put in there.
Let's come back then on the 25th with where we are on that, okay?
That's a good.
Ken, is this going to work out for us, or? I think so.
Got this time.
So basically, as you go from south to north here, as you saw in the typical section, you got your three northbound lanes. You have your right in, right out here. Continue the three northbound lanes. The rightmost northbound lane will be also a right turn on to Rio Road. And then on the other side of the intersection, you still have the northbound lanes as 3 lanes. In the opposite direction, you've built the new curb out here, and you've pushed out as far as you can without having impacts to the parking. You have your 2 southbound lanes go through. The rightmost southbound lane is also going to turn right onto Rio Road and go through. So you got 2 lanes through the intersection. They continue south, and they come back in down there, just past the entrance right there.
Do you know how far back on either side that they'll start to, I guess, the existence of cones?
Of cones?
Start merging traffic, that kind of thing. So the colored area.
I don't know off the top. Well,
That's going to come out of the MUTCD.
Yeah, it's going to be
traffic control.
Well, first, there's been some discussion on what the design speed through this, and whether the construction zone would be 35 miles an hour. In that case, it would probably be about.
All right, Joel.
Oh, is that better to look at there?
We can zoom it when you're.
Can you zoom it up, sort of, as Joel? Can you be adjusted there while Joel? You can online. You can online.
On the
Yeah,
PDF.
we are right. Yeah. Okay.
That's a JPEG.
I think.
Go down, put the mouse down here.
That's PDF. The other one's a JPEG.
There it is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The plus there.
There you go.
All right.
Keep
You
going.
just tell Ken where you want to go.
Just blow it up some more. I mean, you got.
It seems like you probably don't have an answer now, but just to kind of set the expectation of, obviously, there's always a construction zone, but then kind of the zone of merging and so forth, to allow.
It's going to be about, I would say about 1,500 to 2,000 feet.
That again is something we won't have to guess at. We'll look at, Chuck is going to look at the MUTCD, he's writing that down right now. And we'll give you a general idea of what that manual requires, what VDOT requires for traffic control, but it'll have to be relative to a snapshot, because as construction changes, the traffic control will change.
It is possible that they did their highlighting based on it, because there's
Yeah, they may have. I don't-
here, and
I
that
don't know.
looks like it might be about the right distance.
They may have.
Based on 35 miles an hour. What's that?
Well, there is one thing I've seen in this drawings, and that is a temporary easement that goes back a good 20-some feet or whatever. And I wonder what the need and purpose for that temporary easement is. There's a red line. You can see parallel to the red lanes.
This one right here.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit, and then on the other side, it goes for a long stretch on the opposite.
Up here.
side, right there. Goes on, and just skirts the Jiffy Lube building, skirts the canopy of the Hess gas station, affects parking in front of Hardee's and store next to it. And some places it's fine, there's just greenery. But I wonder what it's there for in the first place.
Well, it's a temporary construction easement because the contractor is going to need some area on either side of the roadway to complete the construction of the sidewalk and some of those turnouts. Is that right, Hal?
Yeah, I was gonna, do you know what these lines or distance-wise were based off of?
This distance-wise, I don't know offhand what that distance is, but it's.
Because it looks to me like, I can't see it as well on here, but the yellow line is right behind, is not too far behind here, so we're not having a lot of impacts behind.
It varies.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very.
So we're gonna have to look into that and find what these lines are based off.
Yeah, especially, again, the ones on the
Here, this is
southwest
your-
quadrant, they go on for a long distance, and they are pretty...
Yeah, and I'm not so sure that they didn't put those on there so we can build these entrances that go beyond the right-of-way, so we have access to do that, but we'll have to find out for
A
you.
lot more than, because again, if you go by the cut and fill lines, it doesn't look that you need that much, and that's why
Right.
my question is, what is it doing in the first place? There you see, it goes right smack against the Jiffy Lube building, and then it ends.
Okay.
And obviously, when you come to the new connection to the entrance to the tire store next to Jiffy Lube, the cut and fill line extends beyond for obvious reasons, because the apron has changed. So, as I say, I really like to know what they're doing.
Okay, so we'll look at what those temporary easements are, what the intention of those are. And you can see more clearly down here where the left turn is, to get over to the existing Berkmar there.
And regardless of what a temporary easement ends up being, when the construction is completed, that temporary, anything that was done in the area of the temporary construction easement is restored and replaced.
Yeah, as I say, I'm curious what is it doing, because it's substantial. And it's not everywhere, it's just certain sections. Like when you look on the west side, I see it for a stretch there, a few hundred feet, but then it stops.
Well, VDOT doesn't allow, say VDOT doesn't allow, might not be the right word, but if the contractor is going to be doing some work here at this entrance, the contractor has to be able to get to it to do the work. They'll be doing that on a temporary construction easement. There's been some talk and concern, I think, about, well, gee, you know, is a contractor going to use some big area as a laydown area? That's between the contractor and the property owner. You know, that's between the contractor and a property owner, not VDOT.
Now, there's a big field on Rye Road, but I already see that he's going to talk to the owner.
But the temporary construction easement, and I would dare say that this may not be the result of a lot of study yet, but it's just some general idea, is just provides an area where the contractor can physically be to do work, which is not unusual on a VDOT job, right?
I understand. I know that it's done.
Yeah.
But I see it is in some places, it isn't in others. And where it is, it's pretty generous, so I'm just curious.
Okay.
And then, I guess, one thing, if you can scroll to where the bridge is, to the right, Can you scroll there? Yes. I asked a question last time about
I need to
traffic
answer.
maintenance. And
I need to answer this one because Henry deserves to have me answer this. We talked about question 8 from the statement of qualifications, which said that the contractor would be allowed to close Rio and detour traffic. From the period between May 23rd, I was really hoping the answer was, no, that's not true. But after a careful look at this by VDOT's technical team and further discussions between the chief engineer and myself, for the period between May 23rd and September 2nd, the RFP will state, as this RFQ did, that the contractor could close Rio for through traffic and left turns. So during construction, as it's during that period of time, May to September, May 23, September 2, for the movement on Rio, it would be rights off of 29 to Rio and rights from Rio to 29, but not through and no left turns. Is that right, John? I said that right?
Okay, so it has become a fact.
It's a fact.
Now, I'm traveling southbound, I'm coming from Parks North, and I want to turn on Rio Road because I want to pick up the John Warner Parkway, which will be open by that time. How do I do it?
Do we have that detour laid out?
Branchlands to Hillsdale to Rio Road.
But one of the things we've already talked about coming back on the 25th with is that detour, that detour plan, okay? But I owe it to you to stand up here and give that answer. Now Joel can go.
Well, I want to say one thing. I thought I was done. This also goes back to a question you had earlier about the capacities lanes. During that time period, those left turns from 29 north and south are so heavy, those dual left turns, that it frees up the green time on the north and southbound free movements, where going down to that 2 lanes during construction southbound functions pretty well. You're asking about the capacity, you said about 1,500. Well, when you take those left turns out during that window of the summer, it allows more green time on the through lanes, which actually increases the capacity at intersection on the through lanes also.
Yeah, well, that's strictly for the intersection itself. Obviously, if you cannot turn, the intersection works better.
Well, if you have 120 seconds in your cycle of a traffic light, you can get more green time.
For the traffic light. But I'm going to be on those 2 lanes going to Branchlands. Okay, I'm going to be, all those other people are going to be on those 2 lanes. I hope I'm not there during peak hours. That's a concern there.
Have you all calculated how far back the traffic is going to get backed up during rush hour?
I don't know if have we done the calculation during the maintenance of traffic?
The thing about this intersection is, because it's free flow, you don't have a signal there during construction.
Right.
So traffic doesn't stop.
Keeps going.
So there's not really any change, there's not really a level of service on the intersection per se.
But you're going from 3 southbound lanes at 45 miles an hour to 2 at 35 miles an hour.
You know, no stops. They're not getting stopped at a signal. When they get to a signal, which will be at Fashion Square Mall and the shopping center on the right side entrance, that's where the next signal will be, and they'll be back to the 4 full lanes. Where you're going to possibly see some congestion might be where the merge is up by Woodbrook, and where everybody's trying to get over into those right 2 lanes. But you're still talking from a volume standpoint, for that movement, it's the through movement on 29, it's only about 2,300 vehicles per hour during the highest peak period of the day right now. So if you look at 1,400 vehicles per lane per hour, that puts you up around almost 3,000. So you're well below that volume, even at peak period.
But the right turn lane is, I mean, the right lane is going to be a right turn lane too.
Yes.
So it's really like 1.25 lanes.
It depends on how many people are making that right turn movement.
I don't think we should represent that nobody's going to notice this is under construction.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we're not trying.
There will be plenty of signage, and people will find a way to get through here. If they're going out by a road, they may turn at Woodbrook, go over to Brookmark, turn at Hilton Heights and go over to Brookmark, come down that way, and then make the right-hand turn. This will function. It won't function as well as it is now, but you won't have to stop it.
Our focus, and I believe it's the right focus, is May 23rd to September 2nd. And during that period, May 23rd to September 2nd, the discomfort can be minimized, but it will exist, and it'll exist in different ways at different times of the day. But where this has been done, the main point that people tend to focus on is tell me what it's going to be, and then do what you said, and get out of here. Get in and get out. And that's been the driving force here. Now, I can tell you, and he won't mind me saying it, the chief engineer was the last person to go down to say it would be okay to not allow through traffic through this intersection. And he pushed everybody's button hard and more than once until he got to a point that said, now, for a contractor may come back with an idea we don't know of yet, but from our point of view, not closing, not eliminating the through traffic and the left turns puts the schedule at risk and pushes out past September the 2nd. And all of us, including the chief engineer, just aren't going to do that. We want to keep that in play so that anything we do here, we want to make sure is able to fit in that window. We can get in and get out.
I thought we were told from the beginning that we wouldn't have surprises like that. Are there any more that you foresee that are going to require closures or?
No, I think we didn't know, Chuck. We hope that would not be the case. I mean, that was in the RFQ that came out in July.
I assume that's why there was that big financial incentive to be done in 6 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the financial incentive here is going to be substantial. But we don't want to force an issue that puts the schedule at risk. Bad news would be saying, hey, guess what? It's not going to be finished by September 2nd, and we don't know how to get out. That's not a place anybody wants to be. But we're going to come back with that detour plan. We'll come back with more of these numbers, which may clear up some things for you and may not. But we'll let the numbers speak for themselves. It is going to be a requirement to maintain the 3 lanes north and the 2 lanes south during this period of May. And outside of this window, there cannot be any lane closures. There cannot be any lane closures in the peak period. And all nighttime work has to be finished and lanes open back up by 6 a.m.
Is it 9 to 6?
9 to 6, I don't remember the nighttime.
Or, is there a process for the, drive up one of the firehouse, the new firehouse, coming out of Berkmore and having the access off? Is there a process by which the rescue, police, all those departments have the opportunity to see this and comment on it?
Yes, absolutely.
And we've been sharing it with
We've been sharing it with, I know.
the police department as well as the
Yeah.
fire department.
They're aware that the riot.
I haven't shared this yet because we just got this, but try not to share too much until it's been discussed.
I mean, they're pretty creative. They may have some thoughts that they could weigh in.
It was literally just yesterday that we checked the box with the chief engineer and said, oh, okay, this.
Early on, that's what spurred the comment about the north-down ability to come out of Berkmar.
Right.
Fire department actually brought that to my attention that they needed that, so.
This is where I should share an option with you that we did look at. That would minimize disruption through the total intersection and not require the closure of all through and left turns. And that would be, rather than take 29 under Rio, to take 29 over Rio. But that has pluses and minuses. My sense has been that that is not something that would be desirable. But I want to ask you that. So in other words, of 20 of the through lanes being an underpass, they would go over Rio. I don't believe that's.
You're asking us a question?
I'm asking.
Okay. Let me find that, I need that drawing with the one with the two scales. Again,
It's feasible.
Let's talk about.
You want to do the profile?
the profile, exactly. In one of my previous lives, when I also was looking at Route 29.
No, that's an old. That's an old.
It's the one that you have out there, yeah.
Yeah.
The problem was trying to elevate it is that you get into what's called chasing the grade. Maybe you can explain what chasing.
You know, when existing approaches now on 29 are about 3.5%.
Yeah.
When I go through there, I always assume there were more. And when I was told that it was possible to go over there, I said there's no way, it'd be way too steep. But I think I can't remember the exact percentage, but probably somewhere around 7.
Yeah. Or you have to
Was
go.
it about 7%? 6? It was 6%?
Or you wind up going.
Chasing the grade is, this would be a short enough distance going up where you would not have a whole lot of impact to the capacity of that road there.
Yeah.
Chasing the grade is when you get on 64 and you go up a very long ways and the trucks they can make it a short grade up, but the continuous grades is what really slows the traffic down. There's not a whole lot of continuous grade here at a 6% that would cause you issue with grades.
So you don't think you would have to extend the whole length of the project because you're going?
No, I think those calculations are based on the same limits of the impact of 29.
Okay.
The initial thought among us when it was first mentioned was that, well, gee, no, we're not going to do that. Then it looked like, well, it's not what we thought it was, but we sort of put it on I won't even say a back burner, not even on any burner, because we didn't believe it was anything that you as a community would be particularly interested in. The reason the conversation came back up was after we looked at the Rio situation and just felt that it was important enough to bring back up to you to see if you were interested, because if you were, we still have time to look at that and develop it and include it in the RFP. But if you're not, then there's no reason to ask VDOT to spend time on it.
A whole bunch of pros and cons that I would have to sort out in my own mind.
The job becomes a borrow project, right? We'll have to haul in some.
Well, it would be similar to McIntyre and 250, where they have been able to maintain traffic all the time because you're building the bridge. At the embankment, I still suspect will have to be a lot longer than the cut here to make it.
In that case, actually, you'd be the center lanes through here would be raising up.
Right.
You'd have to put some sort of wall, vertical wall.
Correct.
Right.
Going up instead of going down.
But you may have to go a longer distance to get up there.
I think the answer is we don't.
I don't think you do.
You seem to say no, and I wonder.
Yeah.
Because especially on the, you may be right on the north side, because the grade changes pretty quickly again, it goes up. On the south side, now I'm looking at this screen on the wall. On the south side, the grade keeps going down, so in order to meet that.
Blow this up a little bit, Ken.
There's no way to enlarge.
Oh, you can't enlarge that.
The topography is completely opposite of what you find in
In order to meet it, you have to keep going, and your grade is going down.
The opposite.
And you're trying to meet it while you go down, your grade is going down.
Yeah, your grade on this side is actually less than this side.
Yeah.
So this is 3.5 now. I don't have a number on this. I have 1.5 right here.
I would like to think that the experts
Yeah.
in engineering and VDOT have already discussed this, and we're not engineers, so, I don't know what our input would mean if we said we'd like
I
to
think
see
your
that.
input is quite frankly from aesthetics.
From
It'd be a hideous grid. I don't care how much you dress it up with bricks and lights.
I mean, it really is for you. It's not the engineering question.
Okay.
It could be
It's not
good.
going to happen, so why would we even talk
Well,
about it?
What's that?
the pro is that you can maintain traffic in the intersection. The con for the final product is that those businesses that are, kept outside of the trench, the ones that are there, not only do they have all the other problems of reduced volume of traffic and all that, but they also have now an ugly wall to look at.
Nobody's here pushing it.
Yeah.
Nobody's here pushing it at all. It was fair to bring it up because of the issue with Rio. And what we didn't want to do, what I particularly didn't want to do, is make a presumption that you would think it was hideous. Okay? I don't want to make that presumption.
In an urban setting, it would, as you know, some of us are not all totally enthused about this project.
I understand that.
But in an urban setting, the alternative of having raised embankments and having retention walls that are above the current grade is probably more hideous than this. This, at least you can look across.
I don't disagree.
The other way,
Wanted
look
to ask.
across and you.
I can presume that there's not 12 people here that are enthusiastically waiting to see a bridge plan. So let's.
And wouldn't it also be a lot lower level of service? Because the argument was at least it's 2 lanes continuous nonstop. If you add that left turn lane in, it's sort of like what's going on in McIntyre where the traffic's backed up for a quarter mile or something.
And the left turn lane.
You're talking about during construction?
During construction.
Adding this left turn back
If
in?
you went with the bridge and added the left turn lanes,
You're exactly right. If you add the left turn lane, if you add the left turn lane back in during construction, then you reduce the level of service of this intersection during construction.
I don't think many people would be in favor of that.
Well, we don't need to talk about it another second. What I didn't want to do was not talk about it at all and have somebody say, what do you mean you could have built a bridge over this? So I think we've talked about the bridge idea. I promised Dave I would bring it up because Dave.
While he's not here.
Maybe that's why he asked me to bring it up while he was not here. But no, to Dave's credit, he, as the leader of this technical team and a guy that's going to have key input into how this RFP goes out, he did not want to operate on the presumption that a bridge was undesirable. I don't think anybody is surprised at what the reaction is. So that's enough of the bridge question.
Is there a possibility of working with, check, is it Dumbarton? Yeah, it's on here actually, yeah. To somehow create a temporary cut through like this to Rio? I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to criticize the property owner, but this is pretty vacant to allow for flowing traffic. May provide some income, but also cut through here temporarily like you're going to do down here and just take that left turn traffic to do this.
I can only say if I owned that shopping center, I would not be for that.
Okay.
It's safety factor of anything.
All right, that's just an idea.
Putting a liability on his property.
Yeah. And you have a huge amount of traffic with ACAC, even though the rest of the center is a little bit on the quiet side right there. ACAC has a lot of traffic.
Do you want to go back? It's 4:15. Do you want to go back to the maintenance of traffic drawing?
I think we're done with it.
Okay.
Are you going to close off that access to Fashion Square Mall during construction?
This one? No.
Back to Albemarle Square. I'm sorry.
This, no, that'll be maintained. It will not be maintained full access. It'll be right in, right out.
After construction.
Well, during construction also, right?
After construction, you can't make a left turn?
From here?
Yeah.
No, and that we did know from the beginning.
Yeah. We don't have the grade, we can't get it down to grade there.
I'm really glad I don't own that shopping center.
Joel, I just saw it, but there's a blue line that runs up our top right of the screen up here.
Yep.
What's that? What is that indicative of?
Existing right away. The blue line is the property lines, and you can see it that goes up the center of the road there also.
It's a private road.
Right, that's why it goes to the center of the road.
Nobody believes it's a private road.
It's a property line.
Oh, it's a property line.
Yeah, what do you think I said?
I thought you said right away.
Right away.
No,
you
said
said right away.
I meant the line going across here. Is the right of way
I'm
line.
looking at the vertical.
Yeah, the blue lines are property and or right of way lines.
And or, okay.
Yeah, because you see them, you'll see them right here also.
I got you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay? Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I'll give you $5. Look, we covered a lot of ground. It's only going to get more intense. I think we'll get it's going to get more intense as we lead up to October 2nd and get the RFP out on the street. Then we'll have maybe a little time to catch our breath. But again, the primary focus of everything here at Rio is not to change anybody's opinion. It's great if opinions change about it, but it's just to present you with the facts as we develop them with a target priority of May 23rd, September 2nd. and we're out of there. But while we're in there, it's not going to be any secret that we're in there. And on my part, I'm sorry that it's today we just told you about Rio, but we spent 13 days trying to figure out if there was some other way without jeopardizing the overall schedule. A contractor may tell us there is, we'll just have to wait and see, and they've all been listening to this discussion, I'm pretty sure, so they'll know that's an important issue. For next time, well, is there any items that we haven't discussed on the agenda that you want to discuss?
At some point, we need to get an update from Jim, who disappeared,
On the
about
Hillsdale.
Best Buy and Hillsdale.
Yeah. Well, Best Buy, we need to give you that update.
Best Buy.
We give you that update. We'll give you
Best
that.
Buy's in the process.
Okay.
It's just-
The advertisement.
I don't know about others, but, I mean, we're getting a lot of questions about Rio, but there's a lot more interest to see what's happening with Best Buy right now. It's because
Okay.
it's such a focus. There's been community meetings. So.
Okay. Well, come right back to that.
What happened with the sound barrier? There was a meeting the night after. Are they gonna put the sound barriers up? that
Yeah,
affected-
right now, I
Yeah.
believe you're all just putting up a concrete sound barrier.
That meeting was mostly for the property owners that are adjacent to the sound walls.
Right.
And to see if they had interest in certain types of treatments on those walls, aesthetically.
Because I think the sound barrier was gonna.
The sound barrier is gonna be there.
Affect the design. It is going to be that. Okay.
Do we have some recommendations for treatments on the walls that came out of that meeting that we could talk about on the?
No, well, I mean, the Architectural Review Board just wanted a plain wall with landscaping treatment from the city. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not.
That's
the city.
That's not us.
Okay, okay.
They just, we just threw
Okay.
out some ideas of what, and that was a previous meeting.
Morgan's guy could
Right.
probably work something up for you too.
Okay, if we want to come back with some rather simple diagrams that show volumes and capacity, and Chuck, you and I will talk about that a little bit more. There's no absence of analysis. We just need to figure out a way to present it that hopefully will make more sense than less sense.
And some of the questions I've got on Best Buy has been, when you're building that additional lane, aren't you going to impact the existing lane? And how is that going to look? What kind of
Okay.
backup is that going to cause? There's some questions about just that impact of that flow as well. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to waste the time to build MOT kind of drawings like that.
We've got a
but-
full set of plans on
Yeah.
Best Buy.
It just-
Okay.
I think some people we need to set some expectations that there might be
Okay.
narrowing
All right.
going on there. So.
Okay, so traffic, some traffic information here at Rio, okay? Traffic information here at Rio, a review of Best Buy from a maintenance of traffic, maybe general construction features and maintenance of traffic. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's fine.
Detour plan, let's look off a little east and west a little bit more on detour at Rio. And Joel, let you and I talk about something reasonable that we can do between now and the September 25th, and John, you'll have some ideas, that do demonstrate some of these construction techniques. Let's figure out, even if it can be general or it can be extremely specific, as long as we can show it to the panel and we know what we're talking about when you say build a wall before we do the excavation. But, it took me 40 years to get there, so it's tough. It's a tough discussion. It's a tough discussion to have.
Some schematics. would
Some
be out there.
schematics. Let's do that. And then by the 25th, we should also have some general points. I know we have got the whole confidentiality issue with the RFP, but we should be able to talk about some general points, like we did with the RFQ, about what's planned to be in the RFP. And this panel needs to have an opportunity to look at those and provide some input, just like they did for the RFQ. I know that's an issue with VDOT, but we figured it out for the RFQ, and we need to figure it out for the RFP. So there's some key points that are going to be in that RFP that they can see and have an opportunity to have some either comment on or input into. As we're wrapping up, if you have any other thoughts about the agenda for next time, also we would have more information on this utility corridor and stormwater management discussion. It's going to pretty much be over in the next 14 days. So we need to bring an update on that as well. Chuck?
Well, just the fact that our company manages a lot of property that, within a quarter mile of that intersection, it's kind of like a bombshell going off today for us. And I think a lot of folks are going to find that tough. I just, there's nothing apparently that we can do about it, but again, I'd like to reiterate that I just hope there aren't any more bombshells in the future.
Do you think you would your opinion be that it's appropriate to keep the focus on that schedule in terms of getting in and getting out rather than protracting it?
The schedule is very important, and I think information to the public, letting them know when it's going to happen and how long it'll be, and you guys are the experts, come up with alternatives for people to avoid that area, because most of the folks that live here know that already, but there may be some folks that, maybe directional signs, detour signs, whatever, but there's going to be a lot of confusion.
Okay, so the talk about detours next time is pretty important.
I think it would help.
Okay, all right.
I think for next time, one of the things I'd really like to focus on is the design public hearings and what we're going to be communicating or asking the public at that point. Because a lot of what we're talking about here with the design is being given in the RFP by that date. So trying to be specific about what input the public really has in that design public hearing.
Okay. And remember, we moved that up.
Yes.
For the addendum, for that purpose, but okay,
So
gotcha. Okay. So let's review the design public hearings, what information will be out there during those, okay. Eddie?
Generally, just what Chuck said about the, as far as traffic detours and all that.
Okay.
And, my concern also is the impact on businesses and that, and also surprising, closing Rowell Road. I mean, that was like a shocker right now, but that was some of the things I was thinking about too. It's very important, so.
Okay.
If we could add to the agenda next time, hearing an update on the discussions about how these design treatments might be incorporated into the RFP.
Yeah,
So
that's
great.
Oh, you're right. Chip? Sorry.
I didn't want to. He's been so loud the whole meeting. The two things. One, I think Hillsdale is one that we can't lose focus on.
Yeah,
The city's
great.
got control over that, but it's part of this process.
Part of the deal.
Part of the setup, and we're committed to do all of it.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of value in that happening, and I don't want to lose focus on that moving forward. If we don't have all the right of way, we need to know that. We need to know where we stand. Really solid update with Jim and with VDOT.
Okay.
The next meeting, that would be good. The other thing is, following on Morgan's comment with the architectural and landscaping components of this, of the bio thing, several of us are on the Places 29 Advisory Council that last time met right after. They'd like to weigh in on that, and so I'm going to take them Morgan's stuff, because I think that's exactly what they're all thinking.
Okay. I am going to meet with them.
They called a special meeting on the
next-
22nd.
Yeah, we're going to meet on the 22nd to kind of better hone input,
Okay.
so that when we talk to you on the 25th, the discussion isn't all over the
Well,
place.
just so you all know, I can come out here on the 22nd.
No.
Well, all right, somebody just tell me, and that's what I'll do. Okay? Okay.
Yeah,
All right, I hear you.
Well, I'll pitch that to Heather, and I'll see.
Okay.
I just think if we could, if this group could have the opportunity to give you some feedback or give you some direction, I think that we're headed in the right direction now.
Okay,
But I
okay.
just think they deserve the opportunity to weigh in.
That's great. Okay, that's good.
So if you don't mind coming on the 22nd, that might be.
If somebody just tells me when I will be happy to do that.
I'll talk to her.
I'll be happy to do that. I made that commitment, and I don't want to be the reason your schedule gets thrown off. Whether I come out here or not, me coming out here on the 22nd doesn't cost anybody any money. So I'm happy to do it.
The problem is the 25th is a Jewish
I
holiday.
understand, and I just, it's my bad, because I asked that it be moved, and
It's also after this meeting on the 25th.
yeah, I'm happy to do it. And I got to remember, I go to a church meeting. So if somebody will just confirm that with me, I'm happy to come out on the 22nd, if that's the better deal for everybody.
Brad, do you want to talk to Heather about that?
Yeah, I'll email her
Okay.
after this and let her know that option's back on the table.
Henry?
I talked to Doc.
Oh, it's good stuff. Karen, thank you again for this
Thank
morning.
you for your time this morning. It was a great help to everybody. The traffic information during construction, the current volume of traffic versus the construction, and then again, yes, looking at Rio being closed during that time. Now, we don't want to prolong this any more, but on the other hand, all like traffic that's coming from Rio heading west from 250, even up Park Street, is that all getting dumped onto 250? Will people be avoiding so all that detour information?
Sure. Okay.
The communication, where that's going with what we're going to be doing during that construction phase, how we're communicating it, where we're communicating it, signage. As painful as it is to a lot of us, the overall project, what Morgan presented, I think, is a total flip side of thinking about this is the gateway to our community. Instead of thinking of it as a big giant concrete slab, I think we have another opportunity here as well, and to consider that as well in the RFP.
We're going to consider an RFP. I just need to come back and say what we can consider and how we can consider it. But I'm really glad that you brought that up a month ago and that it's developed in some very meaningful suggestions. Brad?
Yeah.
Okay. John?
I'm good.
All right. Look, thanks a lot. Taking up a lot of your time. I appreciate it. I did make a commitment to meet with a Methodist church group off of Rio, and I don't want to say their name wrong, Aldersgate Methodist Church. So I'm going to do that this evening, and you'll tell me about the 22nd.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Chuck. Good meeting.
Flu got off my chest.
Way to go.
Can't take it.